All right.
Hey, you are recording now, so you're live.
Well, hello, welcome everyone to our policy committee meeting. One of those days. I need to finish my cup of tea here. It is May 5th, and we have a very short agenda today, so we can keep this to a very, very fast little meeting. I'm sending Michael a quick little message right now, asking him if he's joining us, and hopefully he'll be on here in just a minute, but in the meantime, we can get through some of the details, which is basically approving the minutes from last month's meeting. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes? Any questions about anything? I think it goes primarily to you, Lisa. If you see anything in particular that
I have to abstain because I wasn't at the last meeting.
oh, well, I don't think we can approve them then without Michael, right?
No, I need a second.
Yeah, I'm like, I saw
Okay.
them. They looked
That's
great,
fine.
but once he joins us, if he's able to, then we'll be able to approve them. If not, we'll
Yeah.
move them to next
Otherwise I'll withdraw the motion and we can put it on next month.
Yeah,
That's fine.
that works. All right, so then let's just go straight into the discussion of policies, regulations, and bylaws. And today we're talking about restorative practices response policy. So I think, Tracy, are you taking this?
Yes.
Excellent. Take it
Good
away.
morning. Good morning, everybody. So we have one more policy related to restorative practices that we should ideally be adopting by July 1st, 2025. So I know you'll remember we had a very extensive discussion in our policy committee meetings and our Board of Education meetings about our school climate policy. And restorative practices was one small part of that school climate policy, which has since been adopted by the board at last month's meeting. The restorative practices response policy goes into a little bit more detail, although not a lot of granular detail about what restorative practices include. And there's very specific statutory language that we are required to adopt that's captured within the first paragraph of this policy, specifically who is and is not involved in restorative conversations with students. I want to be clear, and this policy is also clear, that restorative practices can and do happen in conjunction with our discipline policy. So this is not a replacement of other policies. They work in unison with one another. All of the definitions in this policy are consistent with the definitions that were adopted in the school climate policy, and the definitions make up more than 50% of this document. And so that's where we are. I'm happy to address any questions anyone has about this.
So this policy, what we've got right now to read, or what we've had to review, is simply, it looked like primarily definitions. It was very, very loose. There was really not much to it. So I'm assuming that this is what the state is mandating each district adopt, correct? And then the rest of it is done not on a policy level, but on a by each of the schools and you, Tracy, who oversees the school climate, correct?
Yes. Like many of our policies, this is intentionally written broadly. The reason that this policy exists, though, is there is some statutory language that was not part of the school climate policy that is included here. About who implements restorative practices, who's involved in those conversations, and who is not. So
Okay.
that's really I think the primary driver between this separate policy.
Okay.
Are there any protocols for how you implement it, or other written policies that are in place?
When you say it, are you referring to restorative practices specifically?
Yes.
Okay, great question. We are in the process of engaging in training around restorative practices. So there has been some district-wide training this year, some school-specific training. We are also training some select staff members to serve as trainers within the district. And so we will have our own practices around the implementation of this and how it looks. And there will be some variation building to building, right? A restorative conversation with a high school student looks different than a restorative conversation with a third grader, for example.
But have you put any things in place so it's integrated into the disciplinary process? So there are things done before, with restorative justice before discipline happens.
In some cases, it's happening before. In some cases, it's happening during. It depends on the nature of the offense, the age of the student, and the context of the behavior, I would say.
Okay.
It's
I
kind
think-
of
Oh, sorry, Lisa.
arbitrary, a little bit arbitrary. It depends upon what the committee feels.
I don't love the use of the word arbitrary. I see why you're arriving at that. I would say that it is more context specific than arbitrary, meaning we're looking at a variety of factors. And that's true also of the discipline policy, just to be clear. Like, yes, there are parameters, yes, there are guidelines, but how that is being implemented depends on the circumstance of each specific incident.
Thank you.
I guess my only question when I was reading this, Tracy, was how often do the principals get updated, let's say, on these changes and the policies and and the process itself? So, of course, principals, to my mind, I guess, unless I'm mistaken here, are obviously through the teachers, front line here in terms of how this, how any initial claim gets handled and that kicks off the process. How often are they updated on these policies and by whom, I guess, just to make sure that everyone is on the same page and implementing these practices, I guess, on a more uniform basis. Again, age appropriate, adjusted, but just walk me through that process of that updating.
Yes. So this year in particular, there have been several conversations about this process and these policies. So we have talked as a leadership team about the school climate policy at length. I have met with the principals to talk about that policy and related documents in more detail. The restorative practices work has happened across the district. The building administrators have been a key part of that training. They've been very involved in that training. They've been involved in helping to identify who will serve as trainers for the district. We do have conversations as leadership teams around discipline in general and patterns that we see around disciplinary concerns. So this is something that happens throughout each school year. I would say that the work has been much more frequent and much more pronounced this year. And I expect it to be similar next year as we more officially roll out the policies that we're talking about right now.
I have a question on that too, then. Can you just briefly give us an overview of what the structure looks like? So, for example, you are responsible for overseeing the school climate survey and the school climate, and this falls under your umbrella. How does this roll out to each of the different schools? So who's like, there's somebody who's responsible at X, Y, Z. Could you just kind of give us a structure?
Yeah, that there's consistency across the buildings for that structure. So yes, I oversee this work district-wide. The point person for the primary point person for this work at each building is the building principal. That is not to say that the assistant principals aren't also heavily involved. As you all know, they play a key role in school climate in general, not just around discipline. They also play a key role in responding to discipline. But it is the principals are the point people.
All right. Any other questions?
I just wanted to point out I'm a little bit new to the language here. Tracy, restorative practices and restorative justice. Are they one and the same? Are they different? Are they subsets of one another? Well, they can't be subsets of one another, but is one more of an umbrella term than the other?
So they are not the same, and all of our policies are around the concept of restorative practices, which is an evidence-based approach. I won't restate the exact definition here, although I think it's a good one. There is an emphasis on logical responses centered around the relationships between adults and children in a particular school building. It is separate and I would say distinct from the concept of restorative justice. You won't see any mention of restorative justice in any of our policies. It's restorative practices. It's the process that we follow both proactively and reactively to help support students, including when they engage in what we are terming challenging behavior.
Okay.
And then one more question, just because I think I've seen it a little bit in action on, one or two occasions in terms of people describing it, our staff, and counselors are mentioned. So can counselors be brought into these processes, these practices?
Yes.
Okay.
Mental health providers in general, yes.
Yeah, that's a better term. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Do we need to do a vote to move this to a first read? No, we don't. I can never remember these
No.
details. Thank God for
Nope,
Jody.
we'll just bring them over.
Okay. All right. Okay. So
Do
taking
you
a
want to go
look-
back and approve your minutes since Michael's now on board here?
That would be great. Yeah, Michael, we held off because, well, first of all, Lisa wasn't here last month. So in order for us to approve the minutes, it's got to be between the two of us. So did
Got
you
it.
have an opportunity to look at the minutes from last month's meeting?
Yeah, look good to me.
All right, perfect. You want to make a motion?
So moved.
All right, I second, and off we go to the races. All right, so discussion of policies, regulations, and bylaws in future meetings. Is there anything that's been brought up that we need to address for our next meeting in particular? Deb, is there anything that's landed on your desk that you can think of that maybe we need to address?
I don't think so, but I'm going to defer to Tracy. She's got the best handle on finishing this branch of policies.
Okay, excellent. Tracy, is there anything that you're working on in particular?
Not related to school climate anymore, but there will be some policies that we will be bringing to the June meeting, provided everything goes as planned. I'm anticipating 3 on
Oh.
different topics.
Oh, good to know. We'll have some good reading ahead of us. All right,
Yes.
excellent. And I'm curious if we could find out. I think it was Julie who was working on the civility policy. I don't want to forget about that one. So, Jody, do you want to reach out to her, or should I reach out to her and ask her where
Yes,
she is on
it's
that?
still on her radar. I
Okay.
will reach out to her just to confirm whether or not she can bring something on June. Otherwise, it may have to wait until September. And also, just so you know, for future policy, Michael, I did speak with Dan DeVito about the website that we had been talking about, and he looked into it and he said he has absolutely no concerns with it. So it's just a matter of when and how you want to move forward. with
I
it.
was just going to say this, that
Yeah, it didn't make it in time for the agenda, but I figured
yeah,
we sneak it in under future
my
meetings.
3 where Sharon brought up civility, which is
Mhm.
great. Second was the microscribe, which is what you
Mhm.
just brought up. And if we're gonna move forward with that too, and I think it's at the board, right? I think we brought it up to the board, if I'm not mistaken.
We did talk about it with
We
them and
did.
let them know we were looking at this.
'Cause it could be a good opportunity if we could approve that, let's say before we break for the summer. It could
Mhm.
be a good opportunity to get it done over the summer. So now we start
Yes.
September with
I
that
would
all
love that.
fully populated. I think that would
I
be
think that's-
love that.
I think that's a great idea. All right,
Um,
so let's make sure that that's on the agenda for next month's meeting.
Okay.
so let's make sure on that, and then the Title IX stuff. Are we supposed to? I know that last time we spoke to Jessica, she said, "Hey, look, we're gonna have to make the change, but it doesn't have to be necessarily, yesterday." Is there something that we should be doing for that prior to the break, or even at the beginning of next year, that we need Jessica for to update any language there? Do you know?
I could give you a little background on that. We didn't have to change anything. We didn't have to revert back because we never changed what we were doing. We were working on it and we were
Oh, I
just
thought we
about to
did. I thought maybe we approved of the changes but didn't change it. Is that
we went to a first read on it. And then
okay?
we never went to the second because we put a pause on it.
Got
And
it.
when the legislative came back and said we need to revert back to what we had, we were okay because we never changed it.
Good.
Cool.
Pays to be
Okay.
slow sometimes.
Exactly. We were a little slow to the party and we didn't have to change anything because we didn't yet.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good.
Perfect. I had one other thing too that I'm now spacing on, but I will reach out to you, Jody. It was directed to you. So I will reach out to you later on. All right. So if there's nothing else, we are setting a record here. It is 9:20. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I love these fast meetings. Lisa?
Second.
All right, here we go. Everyone, thank you very much. Oh, next meeting, June 3rd. So we'll see everyone at the next meeting on June 3rd. Oh, I know the question. Sorry. We're adjourned, but here's the question for you. If we want to get the microscribe done, I think it was like not even $1,500. Is that something can we approve that in committee, or do we have to take that to the board?
That would have to go to the board.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to vote on it in the June meeting.
I think so, yeah. Because it's an added expense. I can also talk about that with Debbie and with Phil to see whether or not
Just tuck
that
it
is
under.
something they need to approve or they could find the money for it.
Okay. All right. Okay. I want to make it move for you as quickly as we can so we can kind of get this
Yep.
process underway.
I will
So,
figure
all
the
right.
logistics of it out.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned, and we will see you soon.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.